We're going to start this show. Welcome to another edition of Pittsburgh Sportsline. We're at Sips Sports Bar, 3024 West Liberty Avenue, 15216. We got a great crowd, great night for sports, and we got a special guest tonight. I won't keep you in suspense any longer. We have Jim O'Brien, but before we bring him up, we're going to do What's on Our Mind.
Baseball season's finally over. Unfortunately, there's a new world champion. It's the Boston Red Sox. Going to tip our hats to the Red Sox. They pulled it out. But I'm going to make this real quick because I'm really looking forward to listening to our guest this evening. Listening today, everybody's talking about the Steelers and the debacle in Foxborough yesterday, and everybody's saying fire the coach, fire the offensive coordinator, fire the defensive coordinator, and I don't think it's the coach's fault that the Steelers are playing the way they're playing. The sad fact of the matter is the Steelers just simply don't have the talent to compete in the NFL right now. They've got their starting 22 just don't match up to anybody else's. The defense is getting old and slow, and they don't have any backups that are worthy of putting in. So, I think the onus should be on what Kevin Colbert and the scouting staff is doing. They need to restock the shelves, and they need to do it soon.
Thanks, Chip. Appreciate what's on your mind. Now we're going to go to Smoking Jim Frazier. What's on your mind?
Steelers, if you're giving up 55, you won't be alive to make the playoffs. I've been saying consistently since 2007 that the Steelers been winning with Bill Cowher players, Bill Cowher's coaches, and Bill Cowher's system. I've been saying consistently since 2007 when Bill Cowher's players begin to get old, the Steelers will be the worst team in the National Football League. Steelers been around for 80 years, never gave up 55 points in a game. Steelers been around for 80 years, never gave up 600 yards in a game. Steelers been around for 80 years, never had a quarterback run 93 yards for a touchdown. Vince Lombardi used to say that fatigue will make cowards out of all of us. And on Sunday, the Steeler defense looked like a bunch of cowards. Listen, only want three things for Christmas. Number one, I want Beyonce. Number two, I want the Wizard to bring the Steelers some heart. And number three, I want Jim O'Brien's book on Chuck Noll, A Winning Way.
I need a hearing aid after that. Of course, I was not deaf when I started this show. What did he say?
Hit playback.
Well, we'll go a little slower here. Smoking Jim and I are also announcers at a boxing match at the Royal Place, 6:30 Saturday night. Come on out for great entertainment, great food. You hear some great sports talk. We have a legend in the ring, Andy Sebastian, doing the ring announcing. Smoking Jim and I will be there. I'm Al Levine, the talking machine. I forgot to tell you about it because Smoking Jim, look at his outfit. Anybody wearing knowledge there, I'm intimidated by that. I asked him what it meant. He said it come with the top that I'm wearing here. So, on a little lighter note, what's on my mind? I've been watching Steelers for a long time, and I just get disappointed, as I've been saying the last couple weeks, that they're rebuilding. The only problem is you can't build a house on sand. And the players that they've brought in, my partner here has said D minus the last couple years, and he's friends with Kevin Colbert. He actually comes into their war room, and he gets to write soft on a board. Now I'm looking at their line, and Le'Veon Bell looks like an excellent runner, but he's going to be like Big Ben. You need somebody to block, or you need somebody to block and tackle. Like we had guys on the offensive line, they're always blocking and tackling except this year. So I don't want to beat them up. I wore my Steeler jersey. I don't see anybody in Pittsburgh wearing a Steeler shirt. What happened here? I'm still bleeding black and gold. I don't see it. He's got Hard Rock. There's a guy that, I can't even talk about him. Forget about it. He's ready to crucify me. I'm wearing this Steeler gear. So what if they go 7-9? There's the Chief, one of my Post-Gazette buddies. Thanks, Chief. But that's what's on my mind, and I want to thank everybody for watching this in the area. Verizon 32, you can see us everywhere, YouTube. And then if you notice, we hit 1,421 on our Pittsburgh Sportsline on Facebook. And I know I waited too long to do it. Nobody can drink in the bar until I say Pittsburgh Sportsline on Facebook. So I hope you enjoy your drinks. See Brandy, Kelly, they're great here. We got Repeat and we got Matt in the kitchen. You didn't know the scouting report there, Smoking Jim. Matt is back, and the fries were the best fries that I've had. There's none left for you, buddy.
Steelers needed Smoking Jim Frazier playing.
Let me shake your hand on that.
I haven't seen that much red in a room since Buck Buchanan retired.
Is he a chief?
He's got his act all mixed up. I mean, I've sat at a table like this at a press conference with Smoking Joe Frazier, but you got it wrong. You call yourself Smoking Jim Frazier, and you're doing Muhammad Ali.
Well, you'll have to hear his story on why he's Smoking Jim.
Okay.
You know, you want to share it with them shortly, or?
It's a long story.
Okay, we'll save that for afterwards. Why don't you tell everybody, if they don't know you, introduce yourself and tell you what you've been doing a couple years here.
Well, my name is Jim O'Brien. I'm 71, and I've been a sports writer since I was 14, when I was the sports editor of the Hazelwood Envoy.
Hold it, could you say that again? We have a guest
I
in the
know.
house here.
He's not a guest. Chaz Bonasort owns every bar in Pittsburgh. I mean, he walks in.
Kamikaze Kid.
A little known fact about Chaz Bonasort and the Kamikaze Kid. I know his family, his mother, his dad, his uncles. They were all great people in Hazelwood. And believe it or not, he probably will deny this, but it's true. When I was married at St. Stephen's Church 46 years ago, Chaz Bonasort was one of the altar boys.
All right. I got to set the book down for a standing ovation here.
Right.
A good Catholic boy.
He has that older boy smile. Look at him there.
I want to tell you something. Chaz Bonasort sells all those Pitt memorabilia items out on the corner at Forbes Avenue. And I'll tell you something. I tell the kids out there, the students, watch him, and you will learn more about how to do business than if you go to the Katz Business School.
Wow, what an honor. I want that degree. I've been training with them. Will you? Okay, here's the first one, Chaz.
No, the first one, I heard Smoking Jim Frazier say he wants a copy of the book. That'll cost you $29.
Hold it. Hold it. You misunderstood him. You're a smart guy, and I know you're a professor. He said he wants a book for Christmas.
Yeah.
He believes in Santa Claus.
Don't expect him to read it.
This would be the first book that he would have read. And he's written a couple books.
I'll help him.
Okay.
I was an English major at Pitt. But I'm very proud to be with you, Alan. I knew your father was a fine referee in Pittsburgh.
Thank you.
Worked at the Pittsburgh Press whenever I was there. You know, I worked at the Press when I was in high school at Taylor Alderdice. I worked there when I was a student at the University of Pittsburgh. And I wanted to get my foot in the door, which is what I succeeded in doing at the age of 16. And then I came back there after I worked in Miami and New York for 9 years. I came back and covered the Pittsburgh Steelers. And my timing was great because I returned to Pittsburgh in the summer of 1979. And of course, the Pittsburgh Pirates won the World Series, and the Steelers won their 4th Super Bowl in 6 years. Wow. And all I can say about what's going on right now with the Steelers is this. I don't think the Steelers merit, after all the pleasure they've given us over the last 40 of their 80 years, that we should come down on them so hard.
I agree.
This Super Bowl is not on the Steelers' schedule. They're simply not good enough right now to be a contender in the National Football League, and people take it as a personal affront, as if they have betrayed them somehow. And the thing is that, for instance, Tom Brady, to me, is the best quarterback in the National Football League.
Right.
Drew Brees and Peyton Manning are next. And Ben is slipping a little bit. Ben's slipping down, but Ben is such a combative guy. The strength of Ben Roethlisberger is also the weakness of Ben Roethlisberger. The fact that he won't get down. The fact that he tries to get that extra yard, he's waving the ball around, trying to make something happen. He leaves himself vulnerable to a fumble or to a desperate pass, which is often intercepted. The defense, they don't know how to tackle. The Players Association got them to cut down on how much practice they have. They don't scrimmage. And even the great Troy Polamalu, who's one of my favorite players on the Steelers, does not know how to tackle.
Right.
That's why he gets hurt. He can't tackle.
He's a little taller than you, Jim.
He's a little taller, but he's
just a little bit.
He's a heat-seeking missile. Hey, you have to be taller. When a guy's from Hazelwood, he thinks he's bad.
Does he?
Right. Even if he isn't, he thinks he's bad. Why do you think they call him the Kamikaze Kid?
I don't know. I thought he was studying Japanese history. That's what I thought.
Yeah. Chaz is a good guy. I was in Hazelwood today. I was at Chaz will know the place. I was at the O'Connor Funeral Home. And at the funeral home there across the street from St. Stephen's Church, they actually have a glass case with every one of my books in it.
No.
So if you go to a funeral there,
I might just go for a funeral.
You get to see the books.
Can I read one while I wait?
Well, one of the things that happened to poor Dave was he got divorced about 10 years ago. And I don't know why, but his wife, ex-wife, took half the books.
That
was
might be
good
the
for
law.
me.
Yeah.
It was good for
You're a
me.
salesman. Hey, wait, let me do a shameless promotion before he goes into this. Buy this book. Tell them where they can get it online, Jim.
Tell them where they can get it online. How about telling them where they can get it at Sips?
You know what? This will be rebroadcast. We're going to have a special. Move the beer out of the way. Brandy, Kelly, get the beer. Let's keep these books cool.
Now, and you can appreciate this. When I was a kid in Hazelwood, and this is a little before Chaz's time, there was a guy named Joe Pajak. And he had a black car that looked like a hearse. And he would come around in the summer and sell ice balls. And he would sell them out of his car. That's me and Chaz. We sell, there's never a moment. If someone says to Chaz, do you have a T-shirt in your car? He'll go out and get it for you, right? But medium, small, or large.
He has change, too. He'll bring you change.
He'll bring you change. So the demise of so many bookstores in the shopping malls around here has forced me into a new business model where I'm doing most of my book selling now online and selling directly, and I make house calls.
Do you? Smoking Jim, I think he's coming to Monroeville.
Yeah.
God's country.
You know who Smoking Jim looks like, though?
No.
No, he looks like our guy, linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Which one?
Robin Cole.
Robin Cole. All right. That's my hero.
Robin Cole.
See? He might be stronger than
He's probably a little more handsome, too.
definitely. Just ask, he's not only a scout of NFL players, but he's a scout of women and models.
A man after my own heart.
You have to come to the fight Saturday night. He'll trade you a book for the admission, I'm sure.
Well, you know, boxing was the best sport to cover. I had a seat right where you're sitting for Ali Frazier.
Wow.
You know what? Forget talking Chuck Noll. We'll get to that. Tell us about that.
I was there at ringside, and I just wish in those days I had carried a digital camera with me because, unlike a lot of writers in Pittsburgh, I was not a one-trick pony. I covered all sports, but boxing was the best because they all had real jobs once upon a time, with the exception of Muhammad Ali. But Joe Frazier worked in a meat packing house in Philadelphia. Jimmy Ellis was a cement finisher. They all had real jobs. You know.
That's amazing.
I love boxing because they wanted you there. They sought your attention, and you had more access than any other sport.
We're trying to bring boxing back in the Berg here, too, with a lot of these things we got.
Well, once upon a time in Pittsburgh, back in the 40s, there was a 16-month stretch where there were 8 championship divisions in the world. 8.
Right. Not like today.
Not like today. 8. And over a 16-month period, 6 of the 8 titles were held by boxers from Pittsburgh and Western Pennsylvania. Wow. And we're talking about the days of Billy Conn and Fritzy Zivic and Sammy Angot from Washington, Billy Seuss from Farrell, Jackie Wilson, not the singer, Jackie Wilson was a great fighter, and Teddy Yaros from Monaca. They were all world champions. Not all at the same
How
time.
good was Charlie Burley?
Charlie Burley was a great fighter, but they wouldn't fight him. Nobody would fight him because he made them look bad. It was a matter of styles, and also it was difficult for a black fighter in those days to get the opportunity to fight. But here in Pittsburgh, I saw Sugar Ray Robinson had his very last fight in Pittsburgh at the Civic Arena. I saw Sonny Liston knock out Roger Risher at the Civic Arena.
Wow.
Saw Floyd Patterson knock out Bill McMurray in first round. Almost killed him at the Civic Arena. So we have a great boxing history in Pittsburgh. We really do.
Definitely. Well, we've covered a lot of other
And
sports.
Smoking Joe Frazier, he's from Philadelphia, not that far away.
Right. That Pennsylvania connection.
Right.
Must be the water in the state.
Well, if it's the water, that's why we had so many great quarterbacks out of Western Pennsylvania.
Now we're getting the football. Now we're circling around.
But I'm going to tell you something else about the Steelers today. I'm going to do a little sermonizing right
Okay.
now. I tell people that complain about the Steelers on Monday about they didn't give it their best effort. They're cheap. They don't pay the players. They're all on the same payroll. They all have the same scouts and coaches. They all have the same practice sessions. They all have the same goals. There's always another team on the field, whether you're talking about North Allegheny against Upper St. Clair or Gateway against Montauk. There's always another team. The other thing is, don't rely on the Steelers and the Pirates and the Penguins to make your day, your weekend, or your life.
Great point.
Come up with your own game plan. What are you going to do this week? If you're a teacher or you're a salesperson or you own a bar and restaurant, what are you going to do to be better at what you do, and how are you going to win? And how at the end of the week are you going to be more successful than you were last week? Don't throw it all on the sports teams. Throw it on your own shoulders.
That's great advice. It's great advice.
Thanks for sharing that. I always talk about the schizophrenic fans. If we win a game, we're going to the Super Bowl. When we lose that game, we're never going to win again.
Well, I'll
now,
tell you,
this year
Alan,
it might be true.
Since I first met you, you've really come a long way. Schizophrenic.
Yeah, I got my doctorate degree now.
Schizophrenic.
Yeah, definitely.
that's
Plus,
a
I
good
read the dictionary like a friend of my dad, Cyril Wecht.
Yeah.
He just
Cyril
used to
knows-
pull the dictionary out on people because
Yeah.
he read it for years.
And yet he still goes with that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, you know why? Look at the crowd he's working with.
Right.
He doesn't want to talk down to him
Cyril's
anymore.
done a great job, though. I like Cyril. I've competed with him on some.
I'd love to see
speaking
you two
circuits.
debate.
Because the one thing I do is Cyril does a hit and run. I come early and say hello. Rocky Blyer always says that it's what you do before and after you speak that makes it work. And
I
listen
got a
to him.
gentleman next to me that says that all the time and when we're with the crowd.
Is that right?
Yes, and we practice that every day as you see how we work a crowd
Well,
here.
you ought to teach Big Ben Roethlisberger about that, because
No.
when you make $20 million, you should tip waitresses. You should tip the guy at the door.
Hold it, I have a question for you, Professor. How much does it cost for class?
The thing is,
Nothing.
you go, I'll give you a good example. Last year, I went to the David L. Lawrence Convention Center to do a book signing, and a police officer showed me a parking lot where I could park, and I was the last one that the guy let in. So I gave him some extra money because he let me in. I go in, and I'm in there for 5 hours, and what I didn't know was it had rained while I was in there. The whole time I was in there, it rained. And when I spoke to him and gave him the money, I rolled my window down, and I didn't put it back up again. I came out in the parking lot. That man's jacket, his windbreaker, was covering my window.
Wow.
Okay? If you're Ben Roethlisberger, you want people in Pittsburgh to be telling their mothers, not that you stiffed them at the restaurant, or that you said, when they ask you to pay the cover charge, do you know who I am? I want to tell you something. Art Rooney Sr. never told anybody, do you know who I am?
Right.
So it's so easy. It's so easy. Like tonight, I come in to Sips. Everybody's been nice to me, from the owner to the waitresses to the people at the TV station, everything. Everybody's been nice. It's easy to be nice. So why does anybody, if you're talking about Barry Bonds or you're talking about Ben Roethlisberger, why do you choose to be a jerk?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great points.
Hey, Alan, you better start selling my book.
You know what? He told me I couldn't discount it. It's still $29. The price is still strong, Smoking Jim. He'll trade you a smartphone because he has a phone that's even dumber than mine.
I like to write the kind of books that you can learn something from. And if
Just
you're a
hold that a
jerk, I
second.
don't write about you.
Whoa.
Chuck Noll, whether it's Chuck Noll or Art Rooney Sr., you can learn so much from the way they conducted themselves and the way they ran their operation. And I'll tell you something that's going on right now with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I realize it's a different age. Chuck Noll could not have coached with free agency because he was a big believer in loyalty. They had 20-some players that were on all 4 of those first 4 Super Bowl teams. If you left, he didn't want you around. And he said you can't build a championship team by taking other teams' discards. And the Steelers have brought back Spaeth. They brought back Gay. They bring back people that of their own volition left. So if they left and they didn't want to be a Pittsburgh Steeler, don't save them by bringing them back. Because if the Cowboys don't want them, and
Why do we want
them?
Great points.
Yep.
We discuss some of that each time here.
But Mike Tomlin is a good coach and a classy guy, and I think I like the way he handles things. I think that Dick LeBeau has not forgotten how to be a great defensive coach. And one of the things that Paul Amalu is doing right now with all those young defensive backs there, if you don't have Clark back there, you can't be freelancing because Clark knows how to play off of a Paul Amalu, but the young kids don't know how. And what he does is he exposes them.
Yeah.
He exposes
Oh, he's playing linebacker now.
Right.
They got him playing linebacker because look at the linebackers
I mean, like
they
I
have.
said, he's the classiest guy on the Steelers. He does so much good in the community. But right now, he's got to be a steadying force on that team. And when Tomlin talks about making changes, he has no players to make the changes with.
Right.
You can't talk. You
We've
can't
talked
talk
about
about
that.
it when you're already thin. To have a great team in the National Football League, you have to have a good coach.
Right.
They have a good coach. You have to have a good quarterback. They have a good quarterback. They don't have a great quarterback. They have a good quarterback. You have to have a solid, established offensive line. You have to have a great running back.
Right.
You have to have a great running back. They don't have a great running back. They don't even know. But I think Bell has a chance to be an outstanding
That potential
running back.
they talk about.
He has potential. But you know what Noel said? Potential gets you nowhere.
Right.
Potential gets you nowhere. You have to do it. You know, I'm a competitor. I heard that somebody from out of town was coming to Pittsburgh and was going to do a book on Chuck Noll.
What happened?
And I said, hey, I'm going to write a book on Chuck Noll. I've actually interviewed him. I've been in his home in Upper St. Clair, his home in Sewickley. I enjoyed a great relationship with him and the Steelers of the 70s. Andy Russell said, we're more likely because we trust Jim O'Brien to tell him stories we might not otherwise tell someone else. And the competitor in me said, hey, I don't care whether the Steelers want someone to come to town to do a book on Chuck Noll. I'm going to do it.
You're the guy.
And I beat them to the punch. And I have a book.
Well, I'm glad you're here and you shared that story.
I'm very proud of that.
Listen
book.
to that.
And you know what else? The book is printed in Pittsburgh.
All right.
All my books are
All right,
printed
buy
in
this
Pittsburgh.
book now. If you can't get a hold of Jim O'Brien, call Al Levine here, 412-973-9611. I'll sell them out of my trunk just for that story right there.
Well, I believe, you know, if you go into a bookstore, pick up books about Pittsburgh and Western Pennsylvania, and look in the front and see where it's printed. And very often, books that are actually with organizations that get grant money in Pittsburgh are printed in Hong Kong, the United Kingdom, printed in Korea, and there's something wrong about that.
Yes, there is.
And you know what happened with my new book? And you worked at the newspaper, so
Yes,
you
I
can
did.
appreciate this. At the last minute, one of the printers at Geyer Printing in the Strip District saw that I had a picture that I thought was John Stallworth, but it was Lynn Swan. And he caught it and called me, and we were able to make the change. And I said, if my book is ready to go on the press in Hong Kong, that doesn't happen.
No, it
They can't
doesn't.
tell them apart in Hong Kong.
Right.
No way.
They can't tell anybody apart.
Now, you can get it done cheaper,
Right.
but you know what?
No, this
It's
is
wrong.
Help the local economy.
One thing you learn when you grow up in Hazelwood, and Chaz can tell you this, you learn how to stay out of trouble.
There you
And
go.
you also know what's right and what's wrong.
Yes,
Look at
sir.
the autographs in here. Just
That's
this
the first
book
book
alone.
I've done with color. It's got 32 pages.
You know what? Smoke and Jim.
Smoke and Jim will like this. It's got 460 pages of photos.
All right, that's my
You
kind
know
of
what?
book.
There is a chance.
Right.
It's slim right
And
now.
it types big.
We'll keep beating them. Well,
Short words.
if somebody could read to them, I won't use any big S words right now, okay? Professor, I'm not going to say any big S words.
Right.
It's simple, though. Simple reading here.
You know, you used to call me the professor. Guys in Hazelwood used to see me and they'd ask me if I knew the definition of a word. And they were really digging deep into the library to find it. Then they start making them up. They start making up words. But Porky
Were they
Chedwick,
Scrabble players?
when Porky Chedwick would have me on his show, he'd say, "Professor,
Is
throw a
that the
big
guy?
word at me."
Radio.
What a legend. He's
Daddy
still
on the
going.
radio, your platter pushing Papa, the boss man at WAMO, spinning all these dusty discs for all those girls out there in East Liberty. They're not even talking to the guys from Hazelwood. They're headed for Hollywood.
You just heard Jim O'Brien do an impression of another Pittsburgh legend, the daddy-o of the radio, Porky Chedwick.
You told me we were going to have some fun here tonight.
Well, we are.
Yes,
And we usually
absolutely.
stop for halftime, and we're still going to do it. We're going to do a halftime show with you, because then we'll talk about some other sports that maybe we haven't touched on. And I'll let you lead off on a sport that maybe isn't in the news or something you've talked about, whether...
Well, I feel like I'm in a Hall of Fame here, seriously.
Are you?
I haven't been in SIP since they remodeled it, and this place looks like the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I mean, it's great.
Well, here, turn
And
around.
it doesn't have Chaz Bonasort's jersey in Canton, Ohio, so this is...
There it is. I'll give him 40 seconds tonight. I'm going to give him only 40 seconds.
He takes that long to cough.
Does it? Well, he only thinks I give him 33 seconds, but that must be the cough. We'll see what happens. Here, we got to mention basketball with you. You only touched a little bit when you said what a good referee my dad was, but thanks. But you had a long, great Hall of Fame career in basketball.
Well, it's really funny. When I was a kid growing up in Hazelwood, I had my own league on my street, Sunnyside Street. We had teams. I had jerseys. If I knew Chaz at the time, I would have had his jerseys. We had our own jerseys with Sunnyside AC. We had teams named after NBA teams. My team was called the Royals because the Royals, the Rochester Royals of the early NBA, had 6 guys on the team with Pittsburgh ties, either Duquesne University or local high schools. And even including Bethel Park High School and Baldwin High School and places like that, Westinghouse. I love basketball. My hero as a kid, I was the smallest kid on the street, and my hero was Wilt Chamberlain.
No way.
All right. Greatest player of all time, in my opinion.
The greatest player of all time. I'm serious.
He didn't know you were going to. You too. Did you script this? Everybody thinks we script this stuff. It's the water. I'm telling you. I'm drinking more water.
I was in a room one time at Cutcher's Country Club up in the Catskills. They played a basketball game there for Maurice Stokes of Westinghouse.
Yes, sir.
And a friend of mine from Munhall named Jim Bucata knew I was a big fan of Wilt Chamberlain. And Chamberlain came to that game every year faithfully to help raise money for Maurice Stokes, who is in the Basketball Hall of Fame, and Jack Twyman was his guardian from Sheridan and Central Catholic High School. He's in the Basketball Hall of Fame, and they forget about those two in Pittsburgh now. But they're 2 members of the Basketball Hall of Fame. And the thing is that I'm in my room, and there's a knock at the door, and I open the door, and Wilt Chamberlain is
Filled the
standing
door.
there. He filled the room. I took some pictures that are still in my books. I was thrilled. But I was the founding editor of Street and Smith's Basketball Magazine.
Listen to that. That's
In
why.
1970, and did that for 28 years.
Yeah.
It was the
That's why I
best-selling
brought him on,
basketball
buddy.
magazine in the
Yeah.
country. And I'm still the only guy from Pittsburgh who's been honored by the United States Basketball Writers Hall of Fame. So, and I still play basketball, not very well.
Do you?
Yep.
We're going to go film it.
Upper St. Clair High School.
Devin, can we get a film of that? Oh, sorry to
I
interrupt you.
played with
Aaron,
an
we'll
NBA
take
guy.
that.
Myron Brown.
Could he jump or what? Could he leap or what?
He can still leap.
Wow.
But he tells me I have deceptively quick hands.
What?
That's from typing. All those years. But I love the game. I love the game. And
No, I know you're passionate about it. My dad talked about it over the years because he'd run into you and he'd have that periodical that you wrote and say, here, look at this article or look at that. I'd see your name all through them.
Well, I'm teaching a class right now at the University of Pittsburgh to seniors in the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, and in the spring I'm going to teach the same class to the Osher program at Carnegie Mellon. But I learn things, and I'll tell you something I just learned this past week at school. That's why you go to school. Even if you're the teacher, you learn.
He believes in homeschooling. We're going to talk about that later.
What? Homeschool sucks.
Thank you again. We have a running joke. Here, I'm going to
Tell us how you really
I'll
feel.
tell you why homeschool. You can't play hooky. You can't play hooky.
Yeah, but let me fill you on his insight to what homeschooling is. We have young boxers on the show, and these guys and people vouch for it. Very nice young men. And he goes, are you being homeschooled? And they go, no. And he goes to their dad, you should homeschool this young man so he can box all day long. And I go, no, get your education. So we argue, we spar up here about it. But that's what he does teach me.
You got to have school so you can play hockey. When I was at Alderdice, they used to have a chicken special about once a month where they had 3 different kinds of chicken, like chicken a la mode. They had different fried chicken. They had chicken this way and that way, chicken fingers. I'd go in the homeroom, report in. I had about 4 or 5 young girls who would give me $3. We'd go for a ride around the city all day. I'd come back for lunch and then leave again and continue our tour of Pittsburgh.
Man after my own heart.
3 or 4 girls, oh my goodness.
Yeah, but it was all research.
Hey, since we're on halftime, I'm going to have a little Q&A for you since Smokin' Jim and Chip Hayner have been so quiet here. If you have some questions for Jim on any subject, because he reminds me, I've been calling him Professor, but I actually think of him as like the Mark Twain of Pittsburgh. And
That's
I
nice.
hope you take that as a compliment,
go
because
first,
that's
Chip?
one of my
Go
heroes
right ahead.
there.
My question is, have you ever met my favorite basketball player of all time?
Dr.
Pistol Pete Maravich.
If you've ever seen a documentary that's on television, it's an hour and a half long, and it appeared on CBS about Pistol Pete. It's one of the greatest highlight films you've ever seen. And I'm on that quite a bit. I'm also on documentaries on Roberto Clemente, Dr. J.
He thought you wanted Dr. J.
Yeah, Dr. J was my favorite.
Fish to say Pittsburgh.
Such a nice guy. Dr. J was such a nice guy. I covered the Nets. But Pistol Pete, I was in the Superdome in New Orleans one night with the Knicks. And see, this is another thing, and I think I bring this out in my books. When I was at the Hyatt, the Grand Hyatt, right next door to the Superdome, during the day I ordered shrimp cocktail in the room, and I was watching my favorite movie, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, with Jack Nicholson. And all of a sudden it hit me. This is pretty nice. And I went to the room of Red Holzman, the coach of the Knicks, and I knocked on his door, and I said to him, Red, I said, I'm sitting in my room, I'm having shrimp cocktail, I'm watching the movie. This is great. And he said to me, this would be a great life if it weren't for the damn games. And that night, Pistol Pete lit up Walt Frazier, the Defensive Player of the Year, for 68 points.
Wow.
And that's no three-point shot.
Right. Wow.
I mean, he led the colleges in scoring 3 straight years, averaging over 30-some points a game.
Wow.
You had, before the game started, how'd you like to have that pressure? You have to score 30-some points to maintain your scoring average. I mentioned Jack Twyman earlier. When Jack Twyman he went out for his team at Central Catholic, he got cut as a freshman, cut as a sophomore, cut as a junior, made the team as a senior, made All-State, went to the University of Cincinnati, became an All-American, went to the NBA, and 1 year he would have been the first player to average 30 points a game, and he did, 30 points. But a rookie from Kansas averaged 31 points a game, and that was
Wilt Chamberlain.
Wilt Chamberlain. And today, if a kid gets cut from the team as a freshman, he comes back the next day with his lawyer.
Yeah.
They want to sue the
Well, that's
school.
bullying.
Yeah, they want to sue
They
the
bully
school.
the poor kid.
Yeah.
Great story.
And kids do grow up and mature. But doesn't that teach you about character and adversity?
And then he later looked after Maurice Stokes.
Right.
And it was one of the great stories of
Yes, it
humanity in all of sports. A white fellow from Pittsburgh and a black fellow from Pittsburgh who were not close friends. They were simply teammates. And whenever the season was over, after Stokes had suffered a disabling injury, struck his head on the floor of a basketball court, and then got some rare problem that caused him to have brain disease. And Twyman was the only guy left in town, and he looked after him. And Twyman went on to become a millionaire in the food business.
Right, quite a businessman.
And really lent a lot of money and donated a lot of money to Catholic charities in Cincinnati. He just died about a year ago. His brother, Ned, had played at Notre Dame and later for Duquesne University. Speaking of Duquesne University, a week ago someone asked me this trivia question and I didn't know the answer, but it's a great trivia question. I'm not a trivia guy. Stan Saverin's a great trivia guy. We all have our strengths. Bill Hillgrove's a great joke teller.
Yes.
The question was, what's the only school in the country that produced 2 players who were picked number 1 in the NBA draft in consecutive years? What's the only school?
We didn't know.
He told me this already.
No, I thought
Make a
maybe
guess.
Connecticut,
Make a guess.
maybe UCLA.
I thought-
it was Duquesne University.
Listen to
In
win.
1955, Dick Ricketts, an All-American from Rochester, PA, was the first player taken in the NBA draft. And the next year, in 56, the first player taken was from Duquesne, Sayugo Green, who was a guard at Duquesne, an All-American. And they both went on to have NBA careers. Another thing I didn't know was Dick Ricketts was on the Royals team. I knew that. But he was so adversely affected by what happened to Maurice Stokes that he retired after 3 years in the NBA. But Duquesne was the team of my youth, and Duquesne will never, ever again surpass Pitt in basketball.
And Duquesne at one time was a national power. And
They won the NIT when the NIT
Was
more
the
important
important
than
one,
the
yes.
NCAA.
Definitely. No, these are some great trivia, great history, but I did want to touch on your basketball. That's it for our halftime show. We'll keep you on board.
Jim, oh, yes, please.
Stick around because I want to find out more about
This is
Chuck Noll.
fascinating.
You know, and how could he come back from a 1-13 season? In this day and age, I say if you hired a coach and he went 1-13,
Smoking Jim Frazier sitting over there going like this. Popeye, he's going like, man, this guy knows his stuff.
yes, he does. He's taking notes, and he never even writes until he gets home.
It's all in
That's not
shorthand.
Robin Cole.
Yeah, hold it. Yeah, he has a little scar there. It tells you it's Smoking Jim.
Robin Cole with Swiggly Motors.
You're bringing out everything. You're having too much fun here. I thought we're talking business.
Yeah.
Buy this book, Chuck Noll, A Winning Way. Either see Jim O'Brien, see Smoking Jim Frazier now, Chip Hayner. They want a piece of this
Yeah, they
action.
can sign. They can sign. They can sign the book. They can sign checks.
Well, one question I want to ask, how long did it take you to write this book?
All my books take 9 months in a lifetime. 9 months in a lifetime. I figured it takes a woman 9 months to have a baby. These are my
I knew that
babies.
somehow I knew there'd be a story.
These are my babies. These are my babies. But it's a lifetime.
How many
of
babies do you
experience.
have in this genre here?
25.
Okay. 'cause
Wow.
I wanted people to hear that.
25.
And I listened to you, and there's 22 sports books.
Yes, I did some
See,
books.
I took notes when you
Okay.
talked at that speaker conference.
You were
and
listening.
Definitely. I didn't just start talking either.
You were listening.
Thanks for telling people.
Yeah.
But 25 books, 9 months each. That's a lot of years, Smoking Jim.
A lot of babies.
A lot of babies.
Yeah. All to one.
This is a big baby. I was a big baby myself. I weighed in at Mercy Hospital at 9'10", and
well,
I was
your
there
poor
for about
mother.
a week. Yeah, my poor mother. She never got over it.
God bless her.
Folks, we're covering everything with this gentleman. Jim is one of the best. I'm sitting between two Jims here. It's unbelievable.
Hopefully it doesn't smell like a gym.
Some Febreze, please.
You know, one of the things.
Oh, it's heating up. One of our co-hosts isn't here right now, the Zach Brenner. But
one of the things that I benefited from in boxing was when I was a kid in Hazelwood, we had the best boxing team in Pittsburgh. Chaz can verify that. We had the Glen Hazel Boys Club, and they won the city championship in the Gold Gloves 11 out of 12 years back in the late 40s, 50s, into the 60s. And I actually went and trained at the Glen Hazel Boys Club for a couple months, not to be a boxer, but it was a good idea growing up in Hazelwood to know how to box.
we may have to get him to verify that story, that kamikaze kid.
It's the truth, man. Because you have when I drive through Oakland with my daughters, and we drive by Chaz's corner there, Chaz hollers out to me, "Hey, Scoops!" And my kids start laughing, but that's what they called me in Hazelwood, Scoops, because I was the local journalist in the newspaper. But when
I thought you were Al Oliver.
Yeah.
Wait a second. I thought you were Al Oliver.
When I was 14 covering the Golden Gloves at the Pitt Fieldhouse, I met Myron Cope for the first time. That was his big deal at the time, to cover the Golden Gloves for the Post-Gazette. And he liked me better then because he was taller than me.
You outgrew him. You tower over him.
And I went up to him one day at the Pitt Fieldhouse and I said to him, "Mr. Cope, what do I have to do to become a writer?" And he looked at me and he said, "Kid, you got to sit down and start writing." And the thing
I'm getting chills. You sound like him.
It's the best advice I ever got, because people were always telling me, "Oh, my friends tell me I should write a book," or "I'm going to write a book." Most of the time they don't do it. You have to sit down and start writing. And I've been successful at doing 25 books over the last 35 years. So another thing is, my mother always told me growing up in Hazelwood, stay busy and stay out of trouble.
How'd you do on that?
People tell me that I'm still working on it.
Okay, I just
Because
wondered.
my mother told Myron Cope a story once. When I was in 8th grade at St. Stephen's, Sister Mary Leo told my mother that someday I would end up in Sing Sing.
That's
So
not
when I
good.
graduated
Smoking
from
Jim,
Pitt,
that's not good.
my mother sent this Sister Mary Leo an invitation, and she said, "See, he didn't end up in Sing Sing after all." And Sing Sing was a prison in Austin, New York.
Yes, it was.
But Myron Cope said, "Mary, if I were you, I wouldn't be boasting about it right now. He still has a shot at it."
And he's hanging out with me right now.
Right.
And I don't want to tell you where we're at.
Right.
Boy, you've covered a lot of territory here, Jim.
Well, I've covered a lot of territory, and I've been very fortunate in my life. And one of the things that I set out to do when I first started writing books was I realized how fortunate I was to go the places that I went to. To be in a locker room with Muhammad Ali, to shake hands with Joe Louis in Las Vegas, to cover Joe Namath, Joe DiMaggio, Joe Green. And what I wanted to do as a writer was take all my friends in Hazelwood with me to meet these people under those circumstances. So my technique is very simple. What I try to do is take you with me, tell you where I went, who I met, what they had to say, what I learned from that,
And that's
what
the
I was
theme
thinking.
through each of your books. 'Cause
And
I've read
and
a
I try
few
to,
of them.
and I'll tell you another thing I'm proud of. There's no swearing in my books. No swearing.
You don't need
So you
to.
can buy a book for your grandson or nephew. He'll learn something about how these people became successful. You know, Chuck Noll was a great parent and a great role model for a parent, because he said, "You only get what you demand." And that doesn't matter whether you're running a restaurant. Hey, they run a tight ship at Sips, okay?
Do they?
Oh, yeah, they run a tight ship. They
I
want
can tell.
Everybody to behave themselves, when Chaz had a bar in Hazelwood, you had to behave yourself. If you swore, you got thrown out. You only get what you demand.
Well, that's why we're here. Look at how classy it is now. This isn't the old Sips where it was dark. You couldn't even look outside. Now you can see our show from outside. I think they're standing out there to see Glen Hazel and Upper St. Hazelwood here.
Right. You know,
Get your book out there.
Hazelwood's on the way back, by the way. They're going to build canals in Hazelwood. Canals. Can you believe that, Chaz?
All the way up to Erie again?
I don't know. That would be a good idea. I told them they should name the new place that they're building Hazel Glen. I said, Hazelwood doesn't sell well in the real estate market. Hazel Glen. It's a glen.
Yeah.
Like the thing is, when Chaz and I were growing up there, we didn't realize that we lived in a riverfront community.
Right.
Because there was the mill
couldn't
and
see
the
it.
railroad. You couldn't see it.
You couldn't see it.
Now you're going to be able to see it. Chaz's uncles and dad and everything, they all played ball.
You might as well drop a few names about the Bonasort guys. All right, give me a couple of those stories. He's right here.
Well, his dad's nickname was Ringy. He was a milkman. He had an Uncle Joe who was an engraver at the Pittsburgh Press, classy guy. He had an uncle named, I'm trying to remember his name. Oh, Franny. Franny went to Lenore Rhine on a football scholarship. No one went anywhere from Hazelwood on scholarships in those days.
Really?
Right. And then he had the older one. I think the oldest one's name was Cab. Boy, I almost forgot Cab. It wasn't Cab Calloway, but it was Cab
Could he
Barnes.
sing and dance like him?
He looked a little bit like Cab Calloway. They were all, in those days, this just shows you how communities change. Like, I know that the restaurants here help support local sports entities. In Hazelwood, we had the Kiwanis, the Moose, the American Legion, you had the Hibernian Club, and you had the Hungarian Club. And they all sponsored teams in Little League and Pony League. The Hibernians. That's another word for Irish, Chaz.
Hold it, wait a second. He didn't go to all those classes, he told us.
Right.
He was practicing homeschooling then at Pitt.
Funny story about that. I was the first kid that was ever traded in the Hazelwood Little League.
No way.
I'm playing for a team called the Moose, and the Moose had green and white uniforms. And my mother, Mary O'Brien, she was okay with me wearing a green and white uniform. So I get traded to the Hungarians. And I wore number 1 because it was the only number that fit on my back. So Hungarians, the H was here, and the S was here. I mean, it wrapped all around my back. And my mother, being a good Irish Catholic, she said to me, I'm not too crazy about you walking around Hazelwood with Hungarians on your back. And I said, Mom, I'm going to tell you something. The Hungarians aren't too crazy about it either.
That's pretty good.
And all those social clubs in Hazelwood, when you had a wedding, if you looked in the bands of marriage in the bulletin on Sunday, they have it for 3 straight weeks. If you had any objections to anybody getting married, you were supposed to come forward and say why. And they meant it. But you'd look in the bulletin and you'd see some girl getting married that you were in 8th grade with. You said, I was in her room in 8th grade. You going to the wedding? And you just show up. Because it was
no invites.
It was not. It was. We were ahead of our time. And they used to run a shuttle service from the Hungarian Hall to the police station in Oakland. They would just go in and grab the local drunks and put them on the thing and send them out to Oakland.
Hold it. I got to promote Pittsburgh Sportsline on Facebook. When we finally get this on air, this is just the Jim O'Brien hour here. And he's unstoppable here. I thought I could talk a lot. He's actually paused. He drank it. Hold it.
Oh, I get
3/4 of this.
The next time I come, get me an IV.
Okay, we're going to do that.
I love
you
iced
will
tea.
get another time.
I
here.
love iced tea.
There's no doubt. But I appreciate you being on the show. We have more time. I still want to
You
dig
told
in.
me that Danny Marino and Bill Cowher were going to be on the
Hold it.
table. Oh, okay. Oh, that's what you meant.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
They're
right here with
how about
us.
Bill Cowher with Queen Z? Are you going to do a show on that?
We might have to. That's Smoking Jim's best friend.
What, Queen Z?
No. Jim Cowher.
Yeah.
Bill Cowher's
Well,
his best
no,
buddy.
his best friend, and we're on the same page.
Okay.
Smoking Jim.
Okay.
Beyonce.
Ooh! I can't compete with you two.
I'd like to dance with her at the Hungarian Club in Hazelwood.
Whoa. You got to give him a high five if you're with him. Whoa. Oh, man, he was a boxer. I could tell.
I haven't seen so much red since I saw the flag of Hungary.
Hold it a second. My grandmother was from Budapest.
Is that right?
Yeah, the pest side of it.
The pest
So,
side.
definitely. She come here in the early 1900s, so I don't take offense to it because I was taught that it's always better to give than to receive.
Right.
And usually I give a lot more than I take tonight. The last 3 weeks I've been taking shots left and right, Chip. He just got another one. You didn't know. He snuck it in on me.
I'll tell you where you guys are really big.
Uh-uh.
At the Giant Eagle in Bethel Park.
We're huge.
Oh, I go in there, and the lady that's in
Renee.
the fish department, she's called the Fish Nazi.
She likes us.
She loves you guys, and they told me, "Oh, you got to be on this show. You got to be on their show." And the community television station in Bethel Park taped the appearance that I did where you were, Al, about a month ago.
I just happened to be in the neighborhood. I'm a
Bethel
mile
Park.
away, so I stopped up.
Bethel Park Rec Center. It was a great night, and I've been getting so many nice
Well,
compliments.
you were the
about it.
lead-off speaker on that.
Right.
So you
It
just
can only
knocked
go
it out.
downhill from here.
You know what? You knocked it out of the park. Nobody else wants to show up.
Right. So
Now-
we're canceled.
Well, because he heard you were going to debate.
Okay.
That's what happened. Now, Rich Fitzgerald, so you got to come out for that November 20th. I can do more shameless promotions. Come out to the speaker series. It's a Wednesday night.
Do something. Just remind people that it's November. Next month is December.
Okay.
Every December 25th, we celebrate Christmas in this country.
Can you say Merry Christmas?
Merry
What a
Christmas.
great
Feliz
stocking
Navidad.
stuffer.
Hold
What a
it.
great stocking
Chip.
stuffer.
It's a
Yep.
great Christmas gift, and I do make house calls and I do sign them, and they make nice gifts. I had an email tonight from a gentleman named Don Taylor in Mount Lebanon. He said, "My wife bought a book from you in Ligonier on Fort Ligonier days. Now I want to buy 2 copies for my sons-in-law for Christmas." That's makes my day.
And look at all the photos in here.
I like the photos.
You got a bunch of them. There's some black and white. Oh, sorry, Smoking Jim. That looked like Lynn Swan and John Starworth. Oh,
Terry
here we go.
Hanratty.
Terry Hanratty. Look at that.
When you said Smoking Joe that there's some black and white photos in
No,
there,
Smoking Jim.
He thought Smoking Jim. You thought he thought you meant Terry Bradshaw and Lynn Swan.
Oh, I did see him there. Yeah, he was. He was.
Hey,
You
Jim.
can be back just for those one-liners. I tried to slip that past him, and I almost got by him.
Hey, Jim. Do you have a copy of that I can buy tonight?
Mother did not raise a fool.
All right,
Don't
because
give him this
if I
one. The
buy,
other
I'm going to buy
Yeah,
one
one
tonight.
in
Would you
pristine
sign it for me?
condition.
Yeah, because
Would you
I've been
sign it
touched.
for
I even know how to spell chip.
Okay, good.
No response
Soon-
after that. That's
soon-
no comment on that. No comment.
As soon as we're off the air.
I left it alone.
You realize that he's going to bounce you guys from future shows, and we're going to do.
We're doing the Al and Jim
Hey, you
show.
know,
doing your
yeah,
show.
I don't mind getting bounced if I'm bounced by the best,
We're
right?
going to do a show.
I'll tell you what, we usually don't induct people in our Hall of Fame for the first time, and I'm going to let Smoking Jim give Jim O'Brien the honor. Go ahead, buddy.
How many shows have we done?
This is 38 here.
We've interviewed over 160 people at SIPS. We got 5 people in the Hall of Fame. Now we got number 6, Jim O'Brien.
Congratulations.
Sports Ball Hall of Fame.
Nobody's done it on their first attempt here.
First time.
This is the thrill.
You said you felt like you were in the Hall of Fame.
I am.
I didn't know you knew something about it. You have like ESP, like we had today.
Yeah, people should check this out. They'd enjoy
Check-
being here.
Check with Jim
thank
and he'll
you.
get your bust.
Well, we only have about 5 minutes. I don't know if you're getting tired sitting there, but we usually try to wrap up things with
Okay.
what you have going on. So I'll give you the first promo. What's coming up lately with Jim O'Brien?
Well, as I said, I'm selling the books directly, so all people have to do, if they Google Pittsburgh sports author Jim O'Brien, and I'm the only Jim O'Brien in the Pittsburgh phone book. And women, you know, when they give me checks, they always say, "Do you want my phone number?" And I say, "Only if you want a date." Otherwise, you know, I trust people. I trust people. I just sign the book.
Oh, you said you're happily married for how many years?
46 years.
Wow.
I told my wife, Kathy, if I stop looking, throw dirt on me.
I love this guy.
But the thing
That's
is,
why he's a Hall of Famer.
I said the same thing to my wife.
I love Kathy. I love Kathy. Kathy's from White Oak. I married up.
Yeah,
She
you
has
did.
a master-
That's way up the river.
I married up socially.
Oh, I'm sorry.
In fact, I'm going to make a confession tonight. I'm really not from Hazelwood. I'm guilty of social climbing when I say I'm from Hazelwood. I'm from Glenwood. I'm from Glenwood.
Oh, Glenwood.
Yeah, Glenwood. I had a paper right there.
Wow.
But the thing is, I'm the only Jim O'Brien in the phone book. And I have a rare situation in business today. Someone that's alive actually answers the phone, and they're not in Pakistan.
Wow.
It's him.
It's either going to be me or my wife.
I did talk to her the other day,
Let
and he
me
was
get out of
he
trouble
was,
with
he
my
was
wife.
he was out in the garage doing something. I don't know what he was doing.
I'm so lucky. I told my wife recently, it was her birthday last week. I said, the best day of my life was the day I married you. The luckiest day of my life was the day I met you. And she has kept me out of trouble, because when you grow up in Hazelwood, you need a good, strong woman to keep you on course. And Chuck Noll and I both benefited by having a good wife who understood what I needed to do in order to do my work and get my job done. And she's the one that reminded me at 6:30, it's time to go to SIPS.
Well, I'm glad you made it.
Right.
We're gonna close this with a couple minutes. I think we got 3 minutes. We're gonna cover what we have going on here. I appreciate you. Just stay with us. Chip, what do you got going on or anything?
I'll be going to the WPIAL playoffs this Friday night. I'll be up at Baldwin High School. Upper St. Clair is playing North Allegheny. Saw a great game last Friday night between North Allegheny and Bethel Park. Unfortunately, Bethel
Was
fell
on the
to
short
North
end of that.
Allegheny. Yeah, but I'll tell you what, it's the best football you're going to see in Pittsburgh this fall.
Jim Render, I've been at Upper St. Clair the same 34 years. Jim Render may be the best football coach on any level in Western Pennsylvania.
I tell you what, that high school football playoffs, second to
great.
none.
It's
Second to
great.
none. I love it.
I love it too.
Well, we'll have to get the Smoking Jim now. What's happening?
We got the supermodel, Rhea Pearl. Give a big hand, all your fans. We got Wonder Woman, Felicia Ann, and we got international master photographer, Bill Boyce. Thanks for coming out, fellas.
And Smoking Jim and I will be at boxing at the Royal Place Saturday night. Aaron Ward will be there filming. We have a lot of great bouts there, Smoking Jim. What do you hear about the boxing out there?
It's going to be some knockouts.
There you go. You don't usually see that in amateur bouts. And Andy Sebastian said you got to be there. He sees a lot of up-and-coming boxers. So we'll be out there. And we hope to see some of you out there. I want to thank everybody for watching our show. We got John the Tiger Kiger back in the studio here filming us. Thank you for taking the great shots. Mario Tempest, one of our supporters of the show, one of our advertisers in our magazine. The magazine's almost complete. Whoa, I got to find, where is that cover? We're beyond the cover now, folks. We're at about 22 pages. That'll be out shortly. We're coming up with the magazine. We just signed up a couple other people. Mario introduced me to a couple great people. There'll be a guest. There'll be guests. They do rugby football with women's rugby football. They do a lot of charity work. And we'll see them next week, Gina and Tony Chappie. So they'll be here.
Is that chip is in potato chip?
Yes, it is.
All right, you got a signed book.
Thank you.
And I want to say goodnight. Thanks for watching the show on Verizon 32, Comcast 7 only in Bethel Park, YouTube, and of course, Pittsburgh Sportsline on Facebook. Thank you, Jim O'Brien, for being
was a
on the
pleasure.
show. My pleasure.
We had some fun.
Yes, we did. Good night, everybody.